Fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's going the outside of both of them. Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up to him.
Oh my God! Big crash. Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys I want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go. Oh no! That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my God!
God, what?
Hey everyone, the USF 2000 is a blast to drive now, and here's your chance to learn it quickly. From my tutorial, VRS created a free bonus track guide for the Laguna Seca circuit, where you can learn exactly what I do in every corner to improve your lap times and get faster on track. You'll learn how to easily recognize brake markers, you'll find out which curves to attack and which ones to avoid, you'll know when to use the full track and when a sequence of corners requires a compromise. And you'll learn how hard to brake and when to lift. The VRS Quick Reference track maps are available free to download and delivered each week to your inbox. The entire global MX-5 series is available, as well as bonus maps like this one and many more. So if you're a new racer, or a veteran, or just anyone who wants to learn how to get faster sooner, the VRS track guides are for you. Just hit the link or button on screen and get yours today.
Welcome one and welcome all to SimSpeed TV for the fourth round of the Aussie Online Gaming Porsche Cup round 4 from the Hockenheimring. We've got a sprint and a feature in the brand new Porsche 911 992 GT3 Cup cars ready for you. Qualifying currently underway, so we'll see how the drivers line up for the grid in our Pro and Am classes tonight. My name's Reese Gardner, and alongside me once again, David Haynes. David, we took a bit of a break for round 3 of the championships, but we're back for round 4. And quite the circuit we're at indeed. The Hockenheimring, one of the newer F1 tracks to be added to the iRacing service in the European sense, and certainly going to provide some good racing with a lot of heavy braking zones and a very twisty ending section.
Yeah, and home to the largest bottle of motor oil you'll ever damn see. It watches over pit lane and probably has a pretty good view of a lot of these corners. Some of them a little more historic than others. Some a little more recent, tilkerized, but that long run down the parabolic towards the hairpin, that is new in the grand scheme of the almost century of history of motorsports here at Hockenheimring. I tell you what, it doesn't half put on some good racing in combination with the historic pit straight and that sort of Mobile 1 Sachs curve section as well. Should all be very interesting.
Should be indeed. And as we have mentioned, drivers are out in qualifying and already testing the track limits here at the Hockenheimring. Here's the calendar down in the bottom left of your screen. That's the 4th round, Hockenheim Sprint. This is certainly going to be quite the race here tonight. But we finish off the season at the Hockenheimring and the Nürburgring, a super sprint and a solo enduro. Still quite a bit for the drivers to navigate here in this season. And we don't have a championship graphic for you at the moment, but what we can confirm is that Corey McFarlane is the leader of the championship with a win and a second last round at Montreal. So now it's going to be up to him to try and get the best night possible here at Hockenheim and hold on to his championship lead.
Yep, definitely reaching that sort of middle point of the season. It's so important to just reduce the risks and maintain your lead if that's what you've got. But, you know, really, really set your sights on a strong result if you're going to try to catch up. Qualifying right now, lots of cars out on track together. Slipstream off these cars, I don't think quite as powerful as it might be in GT3 cars or something. They've got pretty good straight line speed and a decent bit of poke as well. What am I seeing? About 260 kilometers an hour is the top I've seen through that speed trap at the end of Parabolica and into the hairpin.
Yeah, you do carry quite a bit of speed down that straight as we check out the Tesseract entry of Tim Himbury. He's currently in 8th position in qualifying. He's still got a little bit of time to go before he can start knocking on the door of the 38s that drivers like Bradley Vaughan are doing. We've got the Am and Pro-Am classes out here at the moment, and in the final half of the session, the pros will be out there on the track. Himbury gets into the 39s and gains 2 positions thanks to that. Good lap there from him, and demonstrating the magnificent amounts of curb usage that you can see around Hockenheim. This is a circuit where the curbs are definitely able to be used without the threat of an off-track, and the drivers have certainly taken advantage of that, as Mr. Green here demonstrating the wide line through turn 1 once again.
Yeah, you can get all the way out on that curb, but then you've got to make your way back onto the pavement in a slightly timely fashion. Through this section, probably not so much of a problem. You can go wrong side of the curb on the exit of the upcoming hairpin. That would require quite a lot of commitment. We're going to see what the commitment's like on the brakes here. Handy braking markers there. You almost need a 200-meter board to slow it down into first gear. A lot of steering lock, and then if you let it walk out a little bit too far to the left there, you'll find yourself in trouble, but absolutely none with the onboard we just had.
Dalton Green, the Texan, then entering the Mercedes Arena section, and it's looking like a hive of activity here for Hunter Robb. A car jumping out of the way in front of him there, slightly compromising his line into the Sachs curve, this banked hairpin. Part of the stadium section that was added to the Hockenheimring in the late 1960s, and really set the track into the first iteration of its form that we know today. Hunter managing to keep up some deal of speed through the last couple of corners, not quite maximising the end of the lap though out of the final turn, and nonetheless that is an improvement up to P7 for the privateer, so he'll be reasonably happy with that. But well, actually no, I'll correct the statement that I was about to say. There is a no escape rule in this series, but it's only in effect in the race. You can escape back to the pits in qualifying without a penalty. Meanwhile, Bradley Vaughan, who has shown himself to be one of the star competitors this season, currently on provisional pole and looking to line up another lap here. Vaughan's not been doing too badly this season in terms of the championship standings. He's actually in second place and leading the Pro-Am standings. I've heard some arguments that allegedly he doesn't deserve to be in the Pro-Am standings just because he's so good. He can easily compete with the pros, but it's defined by iRacing mainly, these classes.
So he's just starting a new flying lap. Was an outlap that he just completed across the timing line, and now looking to improve on 38.8. Got a handy little bit of slipstream in places. Now down towards that hairpin. Does he decide on first gear? He does. Right up in the rev range and then pretty early into second. But I feel first must help with the mechanical rotation in the slow speed corner.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting that little extra kick, that little extra rotation certainly helps in that hairpin, which is really tight, and Vaughan barely avoided getting rear-ended there. That was Jared Sirkovic who missed his braking point behind, but Bradley Vaughan manages to escape that. He'll continue on this lap as Sirkovic jumps out of the way of the pack behind, and Vaughan taking all the curb and then some. I think he might have just escaped an off-track there. You can dip a wheel into the gravel off of that curb, off the left-hander. Slight lock-up into Sachs' curve, though, might have cost him a tenth or two. We'll have to wait and see how it works out here in the final sector, which is all about mechanical grip, all about keeping the weight on the fronts and making sure that you have a stable car for the exit here. Running out over the exit curb. Is this going to be an improvement for Bradley Vaughan? It will not be, but 2 tenths down, at least he's lapping consistently.
I think a lot of that would have been coming towards the Sachs curve, surely. It just looked a little out of control by that point. It was precise and aggressive in the lap up till then, and it was just a little out of control, kicking up the grass and into the dirt. Quite the precision that was on show earlier.
Indeed. Shannon Mortlock, meanwhile, currently P2 in the session. He's only a tenth or so behind Bradley Vaughan, and both competing in the same class, so every chance that Mr. Mortlock can improve here and potentially take provisional pole from Bradley Vaughan. Let's see how he goes then into the Mercedes Arena section. A very tight corner, and it's very difficult to line up your exit here. It's basically a giant chicane, that section, and you can hold the throttle almost flat through that right-hander, but sometimes you do need a bit of a lift just to get the weight back onto the fronts. Not every driver has the best of times with that.
Mortlock with a later apex turning into this section, and that let him get the throttle open a little earlier, and it was closer to what I'd expect the optimal line to be, but then it is this bit just keeping on turning right and turning right and turning right, and you've got to get that bit of rotation, the final corner, when your front left almost wants to give up. Into the line he goes with a 38.9, the most subtle of improvements in time, but not enough to elevate a position.
It does bring him closer to that magical 10th back to Bradley Vaughan, though. Speaking of Vaughan, that's a bit of a mistake for him into the Mercedes Arena, and that's going to be that lap invalidated. Wondering if he was continuing on a run of more than one hot lap. We'll have to wait and see. Sean Caron, meanwhile, coming to the end of a lap here. He was in 6th and 39.7. That, unfortunately, is not going to work out for him. His fastest is a 1 minute 39.4. So here in the dying stages of this session, the drivers are struggling to find those little bits of improvement that they need. What about Dennis Fiedler, on the other hand? the Speedy Snails driver across the line to begin another hot lap here. How does he go through the first turn, this high-speed kink that is so difficult to get right, especially with that harsh anti-cut curb on the inside. You can say the same for turn 2 here as well. Widens up very nicely, but maybe went a little bit too wide there. That might be the lap compromised.
Could definitely see the tyre smoke from a bit of a lock-up. No ABS for this specification of the Cup car. And you definitely saw he just grabbed a little bit too much on the front and it pushed him wide in that section. Of course, it's going to cost you time, but then also might compromise you onto the straight. Not really a straight, but it is full throttle, so that kind of makes it one.
Absolutely. Very interesting circuit, this layout of the Hockenheimring, which got a lot of hate when it was first reconfigured in 2002, but it has since grown on many, and it's largely considered in terms of modern racing action to be an improvement over the old circuit in a lot of respects. Of course,
if you'd built this layout of track from the ground up anywhere else, people would call it the greatest Tilkodrome and say, oh, very sensible, not too much stupid stuff going on. But it's the history of the Hockenheimring that really, I think, wound people up about it. There's nothing wrong with the track layout as a clean slate, but that's not what it was.
Yes, of course. It was a very controversial reconfiguration. And history is something that motorsport fans don't often like being messed with. But this is the way the Hockenheimring is now. And certainly there's a lot to be said about the great racing it's provided. There's Bradley Vaughan tumbling across the line. Little bit of an oversteer moment, I think, out of the final corner there for our provisional pole sitter. Yeah, he just dipped wheel into the gravel, and it looks like that is Am and Pro-Am qualifying over. So here are your results so far. Let's see what the pros can do when they come out in just a couple of minutes. Vaughan, Mortlog, Sikovic, Anderson, and Kyle Edwards-Lambie rounding out the top 5. Grant Matterford getting pole position in the amateur class. And as we go further down the order, see Darren Hedge there bringing up the rear of the field so far. 20 of our drivers in this session setting lap times, and I think a reasonable spread of times considering this circuit's length, David.
Yeah, I mean, you always look down a list like that and you'll see quite a couple times that are really close to each other, midfield, and, you know, from very front to the very back, a little bit of time, but plenty of drivers close to those around them, and a pretty even spread front to back there means everyone's going to have someone to race. Here come the pros for their qualifying, and it is a land rush out of pit lane as they all emerge. It's like turtles hatching or something.
Turtles hatching, that's an analogy I've never heard before, but we can always count on you for that, David. As the pros are now out on the track, Corey McFarlane is who we're focusing on, formerly of Drop Bear Motorsport, but he has left the team, and he is technically a privateer, but for AOG he is scoring as BVN Esports. So let's see what he can do on his lonesome here in this team now. He's got quite a few cars in front of him from which he should be getting some good drafts, and Dylan Burse for Vendaval Sim Racing out there now leading the train, and unfortunately did not start last round at Montreal, so he's got quite a bit of extra work to do here. Burse actually in 9th place in the drivers' standings coming into this round.
Now, I noticed from particularly front-running drivers in the first half of this qualifying session, a lot of them going through a lot of tyres, and a lot of them setting their best laps on the very first flying lap. So tyre warm-up not looking like an issue. I think that means good signs for Dylan Burse here. He's got a clear track in front of him. He should be able to push on this lap, as long as he doesn't step over the limit, which is easy to do with a bit of the grass on the outside into turn 1 there. But But if he doesn't overstep the limit, then this could be a very good lap right here. Should be right ready to go to put a good one on the board.
Looked a little bit shaky over the curb and fighting the rear of the car out of turns 2 and 3 as he bounces over the exit curb. This is a great shot to just see the wheel work of the drivers as they make their way down the parabolica towards the hairpin, where we rejoin the old Hockenheim circuit. Hard on the brakes, got to be very careful not to lock them up. He goes down into first, uses the engine braking to just slow the car down a little more, maximizes the exit very nicely. It's looking like a reasonable lap so far here from Dylan Burse, but he'll probably want to iron out those little oversteer moments at the start of the lap. Maybe he'll need another hot lap just to let the tyres come up to temperature and make sure that he can maximize his lines. How does he do here through the right-hander? Doesn't look like much complaining from the car at all. Let's see how he goes through the stadium section.
Even more so than the previous generation, though, these cars look like they're moving around a lot when they're going fast, when they're being driven to their best potential. So it's kind of always tough to tell, is that over the limit and out of control, or is that just how you've got to wrangle the 992 car?
Good point. As suspension and engineering technology improves, cars definitely seem easier to drive from the outside. 38.6 for Dylan Burse there, instantly to provisional pole, 2/10 out of Bradley Vaughan, but Robert Gibbs and then Bailey Frid pip him at the top of the standings. 38.503 for Bailey Frid now as Michael Taliancic tries to put in a lap time there. He goes to P12, looks like a bit of a spin out of turn 1 for one of our drivers. And as for Corey McFarlane, well, he was unable to actually get a lap time in there. I think he picked up an off-track somewhere around the lap. Thomas Hinz also out on a lap here as well. And we know how skilled Hinsey is. We've both raced against him, David, and we've had the pleasure of commentating on many broadcasts he's been involved in. He is not to be underestimated.
He's also sort of half a lap out of sync to everyone else, which is giving him some clear track and less distractions. Won't have been really giving him a slipstream. So he puts 39.5, 13th overall. So he'll look to find more there, but there could still be a benefit to not being trapped up into too much of the traffic. I think the reason some of them went faster than Burst is they did get a slipstream in places. Dyson.
Ah, man. Well, there we go. That's what over the limit looks like, David. Just getting on the throttle a little bit too spiritedly, I think, and spinning up the rears. Of course, these Porsches, being rear-engined as they are, once you lose grip in the rear coming out of a corner, it acts like a pendulum. The laws of physics dictate that it's just going to keep going. Sebastian Flock, he was topping the times in the practice session, well, one of the top times. Let's see what he can do on this lap. Is it going to be a 38 for him? Yes, a 38.86, but have a look at Ryan Hunter. He's just managed to put himself P2, splitting Bailey Frid and Robert Gibbs, looking very competitive here at the top of the field. That top 10 separated by barely anything.
I believe the term for the effect of the engine being a long way from the center of the car is the polar moment of inertia or something. It does mean that once it's going, it takes a lot more force to stop the car rotating. It takes a lot more force to start the car rotating as well, compared to, if all the weight was in the middle and in between the wheels and so forth.
Yeah, that seems correct enough to go with for me. I'm pretty sure it is correct.
Yeah, I can't argue with that.
Yeah. Lachlan Cowie, meanwhile, he was pushing the limits of the track, coming through into the stadium section. Let's see if this lap holds up for him or whether he's going to elect to bring it into the pits. No, he's committing to this one. Let's see if it works out to a representative lap time all the way across the exit curb, and going to be setting a low 39 here, 39.067. And that looks to be an improvement, but he stays in 9th place for the time being. He's only got a 10th of a second, actually, to get up to Shannon Mortlock, who's not that far ahead in the timesheets. Mario Vartanian, meanwhile, BVN Esports as well. The same team that Mr. McFarlane, our championship leader, is now scoring for since he's left Drop Bear. But Vartanian, he's been one of those drivers that has been knocking on the door of some really good results here. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like this lap's going to work out for him. He's going to have to let Corey McFarlane through there, and maybe made life a bit difficult for the driver behind as well. But let's see if Mario can improve on his current 5th place, and whether Corey McFarlane can put in a representative lap time on this lap, because he hasn't actually set a time yet.
Well, we're going to see, but I have a feeling like he was actually getting a good little bit of slipstream until the point that he was released and free. He'll come to the line. If it sticks, it'll be a good one, 38.6, and it will to put him to 4th. Pretty close to 1st, but you look at that, he's, you know, a 100th behind Gibbs, who's a 100th behind Hunter. He's so close to being 2nd and still even close to being 1st. Doesn't need to find a whole lot of time. It's pretty close for your whole top 5, whole top 6 there, actually.
Yeah, and there's still plenty of time left in the session to get those last couple of laps in. As it stands, if a driver were to leave the pits now, they would probably be able to get at least 2, maybe 3, maybe even 4 laps, depending on how long they would like to extend the stint. Let's see if Sebastian Flock can improve on his time. As things stand, 8th place for him, and the lap time in question, a 38.867, the one to beat. He only needs 3/10 to get provisional pole, but has he found enough across the course of this lap to get that? 37, 38, and it's going to be a 38.841 then for Sebastian Flock. That is going to be an improvement, but he remains in the lower reaches of the top 10. He does move ahead of Bradley Vaughan, who holds on to our Pro-Am pole.
So who can make a move on that time from Bailey Frid? The track temperature, I think, has cooled off just a tiny bit, but it'll really stabilize from here throughout the rest of the afternoon session. At 19 Celsius, that is very cold, very grippy, but potentially a little bit edgy. We've seen from Dylan Burst there, that's one of the places you could get an off track to throw away your lap time. It's just in a little deep into that left-hander.
The off-track is actually quite brutal in that corner that he had the off at. Even if you put 2 wheels onto the curb and keep 2 on the road, you will still likely get an off-track. You really have to keep it tight there. So this is going to be take 2 for the Vendaval Sim Racing driver, Dylan Burse. See what he can do to move himself further up, maybe into the top 3. Of course, that lap time will not count, but he maximizes the curb on entry, and away he goes as McFarlane also on another hot lap here. Can he improve on 4th position? Number 94, Sebastian Flock, meanwhile, coming up to the end of another lap, and that's going to be another 10th taken out of his time. Good stuff there from Sebastian, but he remains P7.
Yeah, he does. Doesn't move the position at all, but he gets numerically a whole lot closer. Kobe Williams slots ahead of Vaughan there as well into 8th. So they're still exploring the limits of theoretically possible pace. Kinsey, a little wide, sort of straddling the curb on the exit there, and I think that means this lap, no bueno.
Yeah, he remains in 19th position behind Michael Taliancic, so having a couple of issues getting set into a rhythm with this car. Hopefully the rest of the night will see some improvements for Thomas Hinz. Ryan Hunter, meanwhile, he's going to be coming across now and setting a 1:41 here, and that's not going to be a huge improvement for him. Hunter is a little bit down the unfortunately, definitely not an improvement on 2nd place there, still on a 38.6. Robert Gibbs, meanwhile, can he improve on P3? Well, we'll find out very shortly once he finishes this hot lap. There's 3 minutes to go in the session. If you leave the pits now, you will certainly get a lap in. And we've already seen drivers abandoning laps halfway through, coming back out of the pits to try and get another run in. And it's all well and good if you want to do that, but you do stand the risk of getting out of rhythm, increasing your chances of making a mistake right in the dying seconds.
So still watching Gibbs to the critical braking zone. Everyone picking around that 150 marker, and you can see because there's a little more pitch in these than a GT3 car. You can quite easily tell externally where they slam the brakes on, slam the anchors on. And then this left-hander here, deceptively tricky because you've got to keep turning on the exit. You can't straighten it up like you might out of some other corner, because then you need to get back to the left-hand side of the track to open up this right-hander, and carrying plenty of speed out there as well.
It's a very challenging sequence of turns here, the entire second half of the lap here at the Hockenheimring. You're constantly either turning or trying to set up for the next turn, especially in this final section here. Gibbs using a bit more curb than I've seen some drivers using so far in the session on the exit of the Sachs curve. And yeah, a little tap of the brakes just to get the weight back on the fronts through the final corner, and really pushing it all the way to the limit of the gravel trap. Is this going to be enough for provisional pole? 38.61. That is certainly going to be an improvement, but still a tenth behind that time set by Bailey Frid. It seems that no one can touch it as things stand.
Yeah, and they're basically out of time to improve at the moment as well. This will be the last lap for everyone. Tanian's out there, Burst out there as well. And
it's like Vartanian, yeah, abandoning that one.
Pretty sure Burst is done as well here, and I think a lot of our timing is locked in here. What's Burst got?
Oh, there we go. There we go. That is pole position for Dylan Burse. We weren't quite sure how that was going to work out, but he's managed to take 1 and a bit tenths out of Bailey Frid's fastest time there as the session hits 30 seconds to go. And unfortunately, Bailey Frid not out on track. He's not going to be able to try and take that back. So that is crucial there for Dylan Burse and for Vendaval Sim Racing. Michael Taliancic still in 18th place, but there's going to be no improvement for him as he pulls it into the pits. Ryan Hunter not improving on what is now P4. Andrew Dyson, what can he do? 1 minute 38.633. P4 for him, right in the dying seconds. So the big decisions, the big changes being made right at the checkered flag there in the Aussie Online Gaming Porsche Cup, presented, of course, by Virtual Racing School and Sam Blacklock Media. Here's your starting grid for the sprint. Dylan Burse and Bailey Frid are your front row. Robert Gibbs and Andrew Dyson, third and fourth, with Ryan Hunter and championship leader Corey McFarlane starting out of P6. Mario Vartanian and Sebastian Flock will share the fourth row, and Kobe Williams shares the fifth row with our Pro-Am pole sitter Bradley Vaughan. Shannon Mortlock just shadowing him, Lachlan Cowie rounding out the top 12.
Then into quite a lot of the Pro-Am competitors here. Jared Serkovic, Nathan Anderson, Kyle Edwards-Lamb, Sean Carron, Steve Hosey, Michael Taliancic in the Pro category. I don't think getting the qualifying he wanted at all. I saw him spun around a couple of times, struggling with the balance of the car potentially. Same can, I guess, also be said of Thomas Hinz here, starting a little further back in field. Got Grant Matterford, Tim Himbury, Callum Pratt, Regis Stockett, and Hunter Robb for the top 24.
Starting out of 25th is Matt Dunphy with Kian Davey alongside him. Dennis Fiedler and Tyson Hanmer starting out 27th and 28th. The top 30 rounded out by Kurt Dunn and Stephen Griffiths. Then Dalton Green and Darren Hedge, the last drivers to set times. And then we have our race control. Matthew Kefford, Daniel Yeaman and Tom Wilkinson. Simon Mazzomo also jumping into race control tonight. If there is a big enough crash, you're going to be seeing one of those drivers out there in the McLaren 570S safety car. But hopefully we won't need much use of that machine tonight. The driver's now on the grid with 10 seconds to go on the gridding timer. and then we'll get the green flag and go racing here in the AOG Porsche Cup. A short run to turn 1 here at the Hockenheimring, and a very open turn 1 as well. But at the same time, you do not want to go side by side through there. The revs rise, the lights go up, and we are away. And Dylan Burst gets a very good start there. Not the best of starts for Bailey Frid. He falls into second. It's side by side between Robert Gibbs and Andrew Dyson into turn 1. Dyson slips into P3 as the field goes through behind. There's already a crash here. We got Nathan Anderson and Lachlan Cowie spun, and Lachlan Cowie on the racing surface. Kyan Davey also going for a bit of a spin there at the back of the field as the field tries their best to navigate turns 2 and 3. No trouble for the drivers up at the top of the field. It is Burst, Frid, Dyson, Gibbs, McFarlane, your top 5. Mario Vartanian, though, trying to get the position here versus Corey McFarlane, going for the move at the hairpin. We're seeing a couple of them here. Ryan Hunter and Kobe Williams side by side too, but backing out of it there. Oh no, McFarlane just tapping the rear of Andrew Dyson, and we're getting cars spinning in the hairpin here. There's a proper pile-up, David.
Yeah, a couple helped around, some did it by themselves, and off the starting grid, Hinz and Taliancic made it about 10 metres before they tangled into each other. Here's Hinz just trying to cut his way through the spun cars, but that is mega damage there for Nathan Anderson in the 70. His car was grabbing significantly in the panels, thoroughly rearranged.
Kyle Edwards-Lambie also involved, and he was attempting a move on Bradley Vaughan around the outside, but unfortunately got spun around by Sean Caron, and his recovery was ultimately what caused that pile-up, all of those spins. And Andrew Dyson then potentially losing a position there, but he has got the world ahead of him and the world behind him as Kobe Williams just had a little bit of an off-track excursion out of the final corner there, did a little bit of lawn mowing, but stays in line. So there is your running order after the first lap. It's still Burst, Frid and Gibbs, your top 3, but they've started to break away from the rest of the field. Mario Vartanian leading Andrew Dyson for the last positions in the top 5, and Sean Caron making his way into the pits as, oh no, that is a big hit there for Jared Sirkovic, and oh, be careful on the re-entry there, mate. I know you want to get it turned around, but fortunately managing to stay out of the way of everyone there.
That would be maybe a case of just catching that curb on the exit of turn 1 wrong that could find you in the barrier there. Through the hairpin this time, a little cleaner than on lap number 1, but in other spots down the parabolica, some problems.
Hunter Robb, Kurt Dunn, Dennis Fiedler also a little bit slow to get going as well. He does manage to avoid the worst of it. Bit of a lock-up there for Kobe Williams in his pursuit of Ryan Hunter. He'll have to avoid that. This is only a short race. It's only 20 minutes long, should be 13 laps race distance, but you still want to try and look after your tyres, make sure that they're in tip-top condition for the end of the run here. And this is where the moves really start to be made here in the stadium section, but you can see how much narrower the racing surface is compared to the rest of the circuit. Difficult to run side by side, but if you can pull a move off here, you'll definitely be able to keep it.
And it was that front left that Williams locked up, which is not great because you need it desperately through this final sector with the really long right-handers. Then in towards turn 1, another fast right-hander that's going to punish that front left. If it's feeling it a little bit, he's just not going to be able to carry the pace through all those consecutive corners that he'd want. Guess what? It comes into a double right-hander again.
Indeed he does. And out of turns 2 and 3 then, it's looking like it's a little bit closer here for second and third. Bailey Frid starting to get shadowed here by Robert Gibbs, who's got a bit of a draft down the parabolica. Frid goes defensive coming into the hairpin, forces Robert Gibbs to go the long way around. They are side by side at the turn-in point, but Gibbs recognises there's no chance of making that move around the outside. Just slot back in and hope for another move a bit further up, as that's Corey McFarlane around, the championship leader, getting spun in the hairpin.
Just seems like any time there's a pack approaching that hairpin, the concertina effect sees someone's nose clip someone's rear, and you're going to see they were side by side here, and then I think it's some of the cars behind come in a little hotter.
Well, Sebastian Flock was going for the move on Corey McFarlane, and then coming in was Bradley Vaughan there. And McFarlane, you know, I think he won't be too happy with that. He was going wide there just to try and be careful in his pursuit of the pursuit car. But, yeah, unfortunately, Mr. Vaughan turning in. And once you've committed to that hairpin, there's not much you can do to alter your line. So Corey McFarlane has fallen down the order now in 12th position. Thomas Hinds, though, he's been making up positions gradually, but he's managed to get a few positions at least before he comes in to serve a drive-through penalty for contact on lap 1. Remember, he was one of the cars involved in one of the many incidents that we saw on the first lap. And this battle for second still ongoing as Bradley Vaughan, who knows, might have a penalty hanging over his head as well.
Very much possible. Lots of race control activity. They're very active, and there's plenty of heads to bang together to come to a conclusion on some of that. So we'll see what may or may not happen from it. Dylan Burst running away with this race, but if anything, it just keeps getting closer over second because you can't run away. It's Vartanian and Dyson and Hunter and Kobe Williams all in this pack here that Sebastian Flock and Bradley Vaughan are also in. You can see it's just a continuous train of cars.
Yeah, and actually, we ended up missing it while we were looking at the replay of the McFarlane incident, but Robert Gibbs and Kobe Williams, they've fallen back a little bit. They were some of the cars battling for second place, but somewhere along the line, Mario Vartani and Andrew Dyson have filtered through to take the last couple of spots on the podium. Drive-through penalty, meanwhile, for Sean Caron for contact on lap 1. So one of many incidents and penalties we're sure will be handed out very shortly. So Caron will be making a trip into the pits momentarily to serve that penalty. Andrew Dyson, though, in hot pursuit of Mario Vartani in here. And BVN versus DPR. It's a battle of the three-letter acronym teams here at the moment. And you check out from the back of Vartani in here. That rear wing can certainly get in the way when the car gets a bit close. You're not quite able to see the ins and outs of the battle. But let's see how they close up here in the braking zone. Slightly earlier turn in there for Andrew Dyson, but have a look at that for Mario Vartanian. Uses all the curb on the exit, just trying his best to desperately stay ahead here because he knows that pressure is going to be on him all race. Meanwhile, a bit further back, we got Bailey Frid, our pole sitter actually. Frid's fallen back somewhere.
And he's still big time under pressure here as you see the move of Hosey and McFarlane here. Aggressive from Hosey didn't work, and McFarlane and Frid might still yet battle here, but it's down in 10th, and Pace, I don't know, last lap, 1.5 seconds off the leader.
I'll correct myself. Bailey Frid was not the pole sitter. He started in second, so he was battling with Robert Gibbs for second. And I've just seen actually what happened to them. It was a few laps ago, but there was actually contact on the way into the stadium section, and Frid was sent into the wall. So that is not a good night for quite a few of our drivers so far. Gibbs from third down to sixth, and Bailey Frid from second down into 10th now as he'll make his way out of turn 1. The battle behind him we're looking at between Steve Hosey and the recovering Corey McFarlane. And
this is big because we're going to have that top 10 invert for the feature race. Frid and McFarlane are fighting over 10th. Here's that replay.
Yes, so this is Frid and Gibbs, and yeah, Gibbs just making rear quarter contact there with Bailey Frid, and bam! That is not a good place for the car to be hit. That's where the engine is. So Frid, I think, might be carrying a little bit more damage than meets the eye here.
Yeah, I think so. He's still off the pace that would be expected. You've got diffuser and other stuff back there too. Now all the suspension seems to be fine, so he's braking and turning okay, but it's not going to be quite all right in a straight line, and even then it's just put him further back into the pack and into more battles and into more stress regardless.
There's close battles going on all over the place here. Kobe Williams trying to hold off Robert Gibbs here, who wants to get back into those podium positions, but that contact with Bailey Frid setting things off on a bit of a tangent for the 888. As just behind them, you see side by side, that was Sebastian Flock going wide in the final turn, letting Bradley Vaughan through. So Bradley now up into P7, making up positions all over the place and being very liberal with his usage of the curbs. As Dalton Green, a little bit of a trip into the pits for him, he comes back out. Have a look at this battle, meanwhile. This is for outside the top 20. Seems no matter where you are in the field, there's someone to race with. Side by side behind them, Hunter Robb and Thomas Hins. Oh, take it easy, Hinsey. Into the final couple of turns, they run side by side, but room is given by both drivers, and Hinsey slots back on through there. Tim Himbury and Kurt Dunn, well, they might have to start worrying about Hinsey very soon.
He was back in the field lap 1, started charging through, had that drive-through penalty. Now he's charging through once again. He's got to make positions, and he's got a lot more pace than some of these guys, and he'll just surprise them straight down the inside. Nah. Hinsey, I think we're going to see you on pit lane again.
Yeah, I don't think there was any universe in which that move was going to work, but to his credit, Hinsey does hold the brakes a bit and give the position right back, but race control might see that differently. Battle for second once again. Vartanian still with his rear mirrors full of Andrew Dyson here. And these guys have profited quite a bit from incidents and mistakes from others, as Nathan Anderson given a black flag for contact on lap 1. I'm sure we'll be seeing into the dying minutes of this race a few more penalties being handed out. But that's not going to be top of the priority list for these guys. Vartanian started in 7th, remember. It's been a monumental climb up through the top 10 for Mario, and now he's just got to hold off these two for the rest of the race, but the pressure is incredibly high, and you can see that he doesn't have much chance of getting the lead unless there's a mistake for Dylan Burse. The Vendaval driver's just too far ahead at the moment.
Yeah, and not with this sort of pressure. Is Dyson a little closer than previous laps? I feel like he is a bit closer in position to slipstream up and think about an attack. Is that car length to the inside and then pulls back onto the racing line, if anything, just to dissuade Ryan Hunter and Pink from making a move than as much to worrying Mario Vartanian or try to get down the inside of him. It's been Kobe Williams and Robert Gibbs have a big multi-car slipstream on the back of this as well, and will stick with it.
Yeah, they should be getting a whisper of a draft off Ryan Hunter in the hot pink machine. Certainly can't miss it out there on track. But into the stadium section we go for the 8th time for these drivers. And oh dear, just getting notification up the top there of a penalty for Bradley Vaughan. That's for contact on lap 3, and I think I know what that was. That was the contact that spun around Corey McFarlane, the championship leader. So a big blow there for Bradley Vaughan.
Not necessarily surprising, I don't think, given what we saw at the time. Still pretty tight for these last podium positions, though, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
With Gibbs, he's looking at Williams, looking at Hunter, looking at Dyson, looking at Vartanian in 2nd place. The line through what's technically 3 corners. It's kind of 3 apexes here, just trying to maximize keeping the throttle flat through that left-hander and onto this long, very sweeping parabolica. I think Williams in front got it right as well, though, and is picking up the slipstream off Hunter. Means that Gibbs is going to close in on this battle for 2nd, but he's not going to directly close in on Williams as much as he might have to need to make a move.
Getting a little bit dicey just behind, though. Shannon Mortlock and Sebastian Flock, they're trading positions through the hairpin. It looks like Mortlock's trying to line up a move here on Sebastian. Gets alongside him. Flock stays middle of the road, but leaves the room on the inside there for Mortlock, and he is through then into 8th place once again. Flock, I think, managing to just get that move done at the hairpin. 2nd place, though. A proper 5-car battle here now, and Andrew Dyson right on the bumper of Mario Vartanian, but he wouldn't want to lock up that much. He's lost a bit of momentum as a result there. Gives Mario Vartanian a little bit more breathing room and a bit of a chance here for Ryan Hunter to get onto the podium.
And it's the kind of move you need to be in position and shape up and make it happen soon, because they're running out of time, they're running out of laps.
Robert Gibbs comes into the pits to serve a drive-through penalty. They've also got notification of a penalty for Tim Himbery for contact on lap 5, Gibbs for contact on lap 3. So trundling through the pits, it's a very low pit speed limit here at Hockenheim. It's only 50 kilometers an hour, so you end up losing a great deal of time if you get a penalty. Gibbs, though, back out on track and in 14th position, far from where he would like to be, especially with his great performance in qualifying. But here comes Andrew Dyson. He has to go a bit defensive here from Ryan Hunter. And Mario Vartanian, well, he gets the traction down nicely, but I think he got a bit unsettled over the curb. There could be half a chance here for Andrew Dyson to slip through into second place. Is he brave? Does he go for the move? No. He goes for probably the wiser option at that corner, elects to stay behind. I think he's mainly thinking about a move into the hairpin at the end of the back stretch. That's the safest place to get a move done here at the Hockenheimring.
Yeah, and he's shaping up and in position and with speed to maybe make up one place, but then right behind, if the move doesn't work or if he, has a problem with it, he'll be all the way back to 5th. So the risk and the reward in this position is, it could be one step forward or it could be 2 steps back. That's what's got to be on your mind as they come to the line. Should be 2 laps to go.
And there's no pressure for Kobe Williams now at the back of this chain, because Bradley Vaughan's just come into the pits to serve his drive-through penalty. He was assigned a lap or 2 ago. So this is the biggest battle out on track right now. We still have packs throughout the field. There's these guys, obviously, the battle for second. Then there's Shannon Mortlock and Sebastian Flock for P6, McFarlane and Frid for P8, Matt Dunphy leading the battle for P11. We've also got Lachlan Cowie and Tyson Hamner fighting over P17, Kyan Davey and Hunter Robb fighting over 21st position. So those are the battles in the field at the moment. We have had a couple of retirements so far. Both Nathan Anderson and Thomas Hinz have retired into the pits, and I wouldn't expect them back out on track in the final couple minutes of this race, but we'll see how they are into the feature. Dunphy and Matterford, meanwhile, this is the battle for the AM class lead, and Matterford starting to pile the pressure on here in the final couple of laps. Remember, Matterford got the AM pole, and he'll want to get that back in due course, but he's forced to drive quite hard here. They do have the recovering Robert Gibbs running up behind them. He could certainly throw a spanner into the works here.
He could, and he got super close, but I think he might have backed out a little bit. There's going to be 1 lap to go for these guys when they get to the line, and it's a long way up the road for the next person in class position for Gibbs. So I wonder if he might just wait that one out with a good view. Dylan Burst is going to take that white flag, is he?
No, it's he's about 10 seconds shy. It's going to be another lap here for Dylan Burst, and looks like it's going to be a 12-lapper, or no, actually a 13-lapper here, as down the front stretch, McFarlane and Frid still fighting over that position. Easy, Tiger. Let's see if the move is on for the number 5 here at turn 2. McFarlane has no choice but to leave him that room on the inside. But let's see if he can hook up the late apex, get potentially an over-under done here. He's got a great draft and a bit of momentum being carried as it's on for second place. Andrew Dyson trying round the outside here of Mario Vartanian. Just avoids contact there with Ryan Hunter. And Hunter has to take the tight line out of there. Frid and McFarlane, meanwhile. Frid goes for the move in the braking zone, sneaks up the inside. McFarlane, well, he made an attempt at the turn-in, but he saw Frid there, had to yield. But he's going to potentially get it back. Oh, no! Andrew Dyson going for the move there. Wow! Goodness me, Kobe Williams getting those positions off the track. How on earth did he do that? That has certainly shuffled up the battle there. Kobe Williams remains... Mario Vartanian remains in second place. Let's see how it happened.
So it'll start with Dyson trying to make a move towards the left-hander here, trying to come around the outside. Now tries to go over-under, but Hunter already has his nose in there. Super sideways for Dyson, and Kobe Williams takes any lifeboat, any escape he can, and cuts across the grass and finds himself up in third. So it was a move for an over-under that would have worked if it wasn't for a whole bunch of other cars right behind stacked up as well.
That's what you got to worry about when you're battling as closely as these guys are, and McFarlane is still not done with Frid here. These guys now battling for some of the last couple positions in the top 10, and certainly a shame to have seen that for these guys. Oh no, who on earth is that? That is Steve Hosey, who's gone for a bit of a spin on the front stretch. I did notice him black out a bit on the timing screen just before. He might have had a technical issue, but
he was the driver in 10th place, so I think it's elevated Matt Dunphy into reverse grid pole there as well.
It has, actually. That's pretty crucial for the start of the second race here, but this fight is still going on between Frid and McFarlane. Trying up the inside again is Bailey Frid. McFarlane gives him the room. They're still side by side on the exit though. Goodness me. It's the guy who started second versus the guy who started sixth, and they're still side by side here coming into the Mercedes arena. Frid has to yield to McFarlane again. Can he get the over-under done out of this section? Goodness me, there's so many different possible lines here around the Hockenheimring. That battle's going to be worked out in its due course, but this guy, Dylan Burse, he took advantage of everything. Drivers making mistakes behind. He held on to pole, and he is going to come across the line to win the sprint race here at the Hockenheimring. Mario Vartanian with a brilliant drive. He's going to take second, but it looks like he actually ran out of fuel across the line. Kobe Williams almost managed to get second there, but it will be third for him.
Yep. Great work by Burse. What about this? What is going on in the final sector? Grant Matterford is around and off the track.
Was that Bradley Vaughan? That was Bradley Vaughan. Oh no, and the spins continue there. That's Steve Hosey, who's gone for another loop out of the final corner, losing some more positions out of that as we get our final finishers here across the line. The 737 of Dennis Fiedler chasing down Stephen Griffiths to the line. Some controversial incidents here at the end of the race there. And, man, that is a shame for Grant Matterford. He was battling well with Matt Dunphy for the AM win, but it looks like Bradley Vaughan made his presence known in a slightly clunky way. He's going to miss out on provisional pole for race 2, though. It is going to go to Matt Dunphy, who finishes 10th. Here is the top 10. By 5.5 seconds, Dylan Burse takes it over Mario Vartanian. Kobe Williams, Andrew Dyson, Ryan Hunter, your top 5. Shannon Mortlock manages to come through to take the Pro-Am win. Sebastian Flock, Bailey Frid, and Corey McFarlane filtering through the rest of those positions.
So Matt Dunphy there in 10th is going to be the lucky recipient of reverse grid pole over the page. Bradley Vaughan crossed the line in 11th. I feel like that is not going to stand, and it won't. Post-race drive-through for car number 100, contact lap 13. I don't know exactly where that will put him in the classifications, but Lachlan Cowie, Reg Stockett, Tyson Hanma, I think are all going to get promoted. Grant Matterford and Steve Hosey as well. Crossing line in 17th. Robert Gibbs, Stephen Griffiths, Dennis Fiedler, and Kyan Davey completing top 20.
It was a good run up the field for Darren Hedge. Started outside the top 30 and gets 21st position. Michael Taliancic finishes 22nd ahead of Jared Sirkovic, Hunter Robb, and Kyle Edwards-Lambie. Bradley Vaughan with that penalty applied down in 26th position now. So many more drivers taking advantage of that than what we initially predicted. Sean Curran, Tim Himbry, Kurt Dunn and Dalton Green round out the top 30, and our 2 retirements, Thomas Hinz in the Pro class, Nathan Anderson in Pro-Am. So, after a very breathless first race here tonight at the Hockenheimring, we're going to step aside very briefly here at SimSpeed TV and bring you the 35-minute feature. Every chance of a safety car and a pit stop required for the drivers as well. Who's going to take top honours? We'll find out very shortly. You're watching the Aussie Online Gaming Porsche Cup here on SimSpeed TV.
Yeah, so we're using the VRS Direct Force Pro this year. We have a wheel adapter right here, so I'm using the rim I used last year. But the motor right here produces a lot of power, a lot of precision, and it helps me, just feel the car more, feel the car a lot quicker. Especially, this week we're at Sonoma. I can feel it, when it hits the curbs. Any little change in the car, the wheel reacts a lot quicker than your typical gear-driven or belt-driven wheel. For example, if you're on oval and the rear tires break loose, force feedback on it corrects a lot quicker than your typical wheels. There's no resistance pretty much as far as being able to make quick corrections on the wheel. So all that, paired with how precise the wheel itself is, it makes it to where it helps you as a driver, to find that extra hundredth or thousandths of a second. So when you're getting a direct drive wheel, especially the VRS wheel, it's heavy duty. It's got good weight to it, it's not a plastic toy. Feels like you can really beat up on it. A lot of people have issues with their plastic gear-driven wheels just kind of breaking after a couple years. This thing just feels like it can go forever. The forces are really strong where if you might have to let go of the wheel if you get into the wall. You can adjust all that with the settings on it and stuff, but the wheel itself doesn't play around. It's got way more strength than you could ever need, and that's what makes it good, that you can adjust that down to whatever the car needs. So initially you'll be able to get the controller box and the motor together, and eventually you will be able to add a rim onto that option. They'll also be including a button plate on it to put on the rim to have all sorts of different buttons and functionality. Also, pedals are coming, so that's a pretty big deal as well. Hasn't been covered too much, but the goal is to also have pedals to go along with the Direct Force Pro. So that's pretty exciting. The wheel feels good. It feels very much like a real world steering wheel. You just kind of feel like what you would imagine the car to feel like. A real steering wheel in a car is very smooth, it's very direct, very quick, and that's what this wheel feels like.
This is iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in indoor series from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, the World of Outlaws, Aussie Supercars and more. Take on legendary circuits like Daytona, Silverstone and the Nürburgring. Join iRacing's global online racing community and get on track today at iRacing.com.
We're SimSpeed TV. You're watching the Aussie Online Gaming Porsche Cup presented by Virtual Racing School and Sam Blacklock Media. It's myself, Reese Gardner, and David Haynes in the commentary box with Jay Kennedy on production behind the scenes. And what a night we've had so far. Round 4 of Season 5 here at the Hockenheimring. Plenty of penalties handed out in that first race, David, and some driving that I think a couple of drivers will be none too happy with.
Yeah, well, I think about half of the carnage was reserved for lap 1 in the hairpin, but that didn't mean it ended there, because there was still plenty of other contact and rubbing and excitement. Some of it was absolutely sort of penalty-worthy and a little bit below the belt, but then we also saw some, exciting stuff. I thought the battle for second was pretty fair at the Mercedes-Benz stand, but it did result in just a little bit of contact.
Just a little bit. Hopefully the drivers will clean things up a little here for the start of the second race. Mandatory pit stop required in this one, and the end of lap 5 to the end of lap 13 is the pit window. Matt Dunphy, on account of finishing 10th in race 1, will start the second race from pole position. He's got Corey McFarlane, championship leader, alongside him. That's going to be advantageous for a man that did not have the best of races in race 1. Bailey Frid and Sebastian Flock on row 2, Shannon Mortlock on the Pro-Am pole, with Ryan Hunter alongside him rounding out the top 6. 7th place going to be Andrew Dyson, then it's Kobe Williams, Mario Vartanian and Dylan Burse who round out your top 10, with Callum Pratt and Lachlan Cowie 11th and 12th. And the rest of the field, basically, as they finished in the first race here, a very colourful grid we've got in the AOG Porsche Cup, as all of the drivers are now on the grid. The timer hits 0, the revs rise. What a beautiful sound of those flat sixes singing. And we are away for race 2, and it looks like a bit of a mixed up start here. Losing positions off the line is Sebastian Flock. He bogged down. He's lost quite a few positions as they come into turn 1 for the first time. Matt Dunphy losing places there. There's a bit of a pile up at the back of the field, and Matt Dunphy has lost the lead. Now Bailey Frid taking it from Corey McFarlane as Andrew Dyson gets spun around, and oh my goodness, that has taken... Hunter, yes, with him. My goodness, airborne was the Hot Pink 975 machine.
Other incidents in other places as well. So again, a pretty scruffy lap number 1. Flock sort of spun him up, went nowhere, and that went nowhere on the brakes there. So wide. Out of Frid, it might have been there. It means Corey McFarlane through into the lead of the race. Moderately unchallenged just for the moment.
Have a look at this fighting here coming into the Mercedes-Benz stand, though. Oh, I see Regis Stockett trying his best to hold on for a position from Steve Hosey, going straight off into the gravel trap as Steve Griffiths and into the wall for him. There was no chance of that car getting stopped at all, but the battling still goes on. Both Shannon Mortlock and Kobe Williams off the circuit and into the Sachs curve. Kobe Williams goes a bit too deep into the gravel trap. He will fall outside the top 10 for sure, as there's a spin in the background. Steve Hosey getting the rear end loose. Another chaotic first lap here.
Absolutely bonkers in places.
I mean, what do you even say? Like, there's so much that's gone on, I don't even know how to begin to start picking it apart. At least we have some consistent positions here to talk about. There's McFarlane from Frid from Mortlock, your top 3. Vartanian in 4th. Dylan Burse has elevated himself from 10th to 5th. Our pole sitter Matt Dunphy now running in 7th.
Some big losers, but the big gainers. Vartanian up in 4th. Dylan Burse from winning in race number 1, starting 10th, now up into the top 5 again, and it's pretty racy places to be here as well, around 3rd and 4th and 5th.
That's Mario Vartanian getting the move done on Shannon Mortlock, and Dylan Burse tried to get it done as well, as we look at this long train of cars headed up by Matt Dunphy, Callum Pratt, Robert Gibbs, Regis Stockett, Cowie, Williams, Hanmer, and Cayenne Davey as well. Here is Shannon Mortlock trying his best here out of the Mercedes Arena section. Side by side behind him, Callum Pratt and Robert Gibbs, and Gibbs will sweep around the outside to take that position, but trying again on Dylan Burse as Shannon Mortlock. Burse will have the inside into the Sachs curve, though. Oftentimes, the outside will be advantageous here, and they all just manage to give each other enough room on the exit here. They're battling each other all the way through the final couple of turns. Can Burse take it round the outside in the double apex final corner? Plenty of space for it to get done, but it seems for the moment Mortlock had the run. But Burse, he gets on the throttle a little better. On the outside into turn 1 doesn't always work. How's this going to work out between these two? Well, they give each other room. Mortlock losing pace there. He's going to lose that position to Sebastian Flock. But Dylan Burse now up into 4th place. He can start his pursuit of the top 3. And speaking of, look at the battle for the lead. Bailey Frid has not left Corey McFarlane alone. You see the red banner on McFarlane's car, his windscreen. That denotes him as the championship leader coming into this round. But Bailey Frid is going to try and deny deny him a potential race win here tonight. A little bit earlier on the brakes, but he has the inside for the hairpin. Is it going to be an over-under attempt here from McFarlane? He gets the power down very nicely, but unless he decides to switch to the other side, not much chance of a move into the Mercedes section. Fred going to have the inside here, uses all the curb, and keeps that race lead for now. It's looking like one heck of a battle for the lead, especially with Mario Vartanian catching up to them like he is.
Yeah, exactly. All that side-by-side through the hairpin and then off the corner has brought Vartanian right into their little fight. McFarlane thinking about it, still thinking about it. Recipe for disaster here, surely. He's got to slow down on the inside line. Frid quick around the outside. And Vartanian now within a car's length of them once again.
What a great battle this is. And already starting to come up on some lap traffic in the form of Stephen Griffiths, but he gets out of the way, jumps into the pits. And we'll get a virtual racing school replay here of that run through for Sebastian Flock. He went a little bit deep there, got the move done nicely though, and held on to it. But we will keep watching this replay because that just happened. That's what happens when you go over those orange curbs and spins onto the racing line. Fortunately, everyone sees what's going on and moves out of the way. But yeah, you don't want to hit those curbs, David.
Not like that.
No.
Definitely not like that. That cost him very significantly. Only saving grace is he wasn't in the wall. Oh, all over the shop here for Fred. He almost gives up the lead, then gets back onto the racing surface. He's going to try to run McFarlane out of road. McFarlane's not quite going to lift, and now I think McFarlane's the side of the road you want to be, which is the left through here that Frid used so successfully a lap ago, and Vartanian is still, I don't know.
Opportunistic. Here we go. Oh, Frid goes off the track and lets Vartanian alongside him. And oh, that looked like latency contact between them. Vartanian with quite a big hit. He's going to lose third place there to Dylan Burse.
Vartanian tried to switch back to the other side, but he wasn't quite clear, I think. It's kind of how some of that contact originated, and it puts Burse through into third. So early in this race already, and he's charging through to shape up for a double victory.
And we have our first penalty of the night of the second race. Bradley Vaughan with another drive-through penalty for contact on lap 1. It has not been the night for the Pro-Am pole sitter in the first race. Got a battle going on just up ahead of him, and looks like one of the DPR machines. That might be Andrew Dyson, who's trying his best to recover here from what has been a very difficult race from so far. Just up ahead, Nathan Anderson battling for 15th, trying for 14th place with Kian Davey, getting up the inside into turn 2. They continue to battle up ahead, and oh, getting squeezed to the inside there by Davey, but they both managed to keep it going. It's got here, not for long though. Bit of rear end contact sends Kian Davey off the circuit. He does manage to recover though, keep it going forward. That's the main thing. This is a longer race. You do still have a few more chances to get it back. Don't forget, these guys are going to have to come into the pits at some point.
I was about to say something, and I can't.
Yeah, I feel the same way, man. This is chaotic.
On the top 4, that much, very much for certain. McFarlane has gotten to the lead, but he has not been able to get away from Bailey Frid. Dylan Burse has been able to catch the both of them, and Vartanian still within touching distance. This is your 4 cars for the lead.
And what a fight it is. McFarlane and Frid, they slowed each other up quite a bit, and that's brought Dylan Burse and Mario Vartanian into the fold here for the battle for the lead. And it could all be defined by the pit stops. Remember, at the end of lap 5, which is now, the pit window opens, and they can come in anytime towards the end of lap 13, I believe. We're already seeing drivers jump on in. Kobe Williams is in the lane now. Might have come in a little early there.
SimSpeed in, Nathan Anderson in, but I think that's because he's got damage. There was a bit of contact out there for him. dashboard here in top gear. Down the inside, looking down the inside for Burst, and I tell you what, he gets to the apex and he makes it turns, but he's still leaning on Frid, and the two of them make a little bit of contact there. And Frid probably not happy with that.
Yeah, I think I saw a bit of a hint of a headlight flash there. He's going to almost lose third place there to Mario Vartanian. He does indeed. So from second to fourth in a matter of a couple of corners. But Frid will be right back on the attack once again. Tell you what, that has given a good advantage to Corey McFarlane. He now leads by 0.8 of a second over Dylan Burse. Now that 0.8 could make all the difference. A little bit later on, you just got to make sure that you keep the laps consistent, don't make too many mistakes, and make sure that you nail your pit stop as well. Kobe Williams, he's just come out of the pits, and 10.6 seconds spent in the box there for Kobe, down in 22nd now. So gives you a bit of an idea of how much time the drivers end up losing in the pits. Remember, Williams was on the verge of knocking on the top 5 there.
As it stands at the moment, you'd probably want to stay out as these leaders, but as drivers from the mid-pack start pitting, they might end up as sort of lapped cars for the leaders. Might make them consider stopping a little earlier. Andrew Dyson. Tidy at turn 2, but the problem's always going to be it potentially opens you up to caught right back towards the parabolic, and as you saw from the rearward facing camera, a little bit of damage to the rear wing as well. I'm sure not helping his straight line speed at all. About in the O and the U of Southwell.
Yeah, of course. Well, Kyle Edwards-Lambie tried to take advantage of that, but Dyson went very deep into the hairpin and kept the position. He'll be hoping that he'll be able to extend that gap through the last half of the circuit here, try and keep him behind. It's going to be a tough recovery drive here for Andrew Dyson. He has been making up positions gradually, but he's still 6 down from where he started. In terms of the biggest mover in the field, that is Jared Sirkovic. He is in 9th place and up 14 places. But the battle for the lead is where we continue to draw our attention. There is Jared Sirkovic, and he's got nice gaps to the cars behind. Matt Dunphy, who started on pole for this race, running behind him. So here is Dylan Burse on the back of Corey McFarlane and pushing as hard as he ever has to try and get this race lead. He's been in the draft range of our race leader for some time now, and have a look at that. He's absolutely nailing the exit of turn 1. Could potentially go for a move at turn 2. He sticks the nose out, goes for the move. Has he gone too deep? No, he just manages to get it turned in, and McFarlane yields to him. Great driving there from both of those drivers, keeping it clean but still racing hard. It's not over though. Coming up to the hairpin, McFarlane's going to have the draft. Mario Vartanian behind is going to have the draft as well. Vartanian moves out and has a bit of a look. McFarlane pulls out and he gets on the brakes a little bit earlier there. May have pressured Burse into a mistake. No, he is not. Burse stands firm and gets a great exit from the hairpin. Now extends his current lead out.
Yeah, perfect stuff from Burse. I don't think McFarlane really wanted to take that lead back. He definitely doesn't need to championship-wise. You saw him almost bump drafting Burse down the pit straight. It makes McFarlane vulnerable to Vartanian and might bring Bailey Frid back into it. Gibbs and Mortlock, you can see, still looming in the background here. If the leaders are going to keep battling, they don't have huge amounts of time in hand to do that sort of, too wide through these complexes of corners like they sometimes did in race number 1. And I wonder if we'll see any of them from this top group blink for the pit lane.
Looks like all of them avoid it for the time being.
Yeah, that was no, and no if you were keeping tabs.
Yes, of course. Well, Hosey and Williams, Williams here, the leading car of those that have pitted, and Hosey running down in 17th position at the moment. He went for a couple of spins at the end of race 1, and he'll be looking to minimise those mistakes for the longer race 2. But Kobe Williams showing he has lost none of his pace. It's basically just a stop for fuel here in this second race here. The drivers will be stopped for about 9 to 11 seconds, and just topping up the tank is all you really need to do. The tyres, they end up lasting quite a long time in these Porsche Cup cars. It's not going to be much danger of the tyres being too leery at the end of this race, so Williams can still extract all of the pace he can out of it. The lead battle, though, McFarlane remaining in second place here. Bailey Frid still shadowing the back of them, but look just behind them. They got Robert Gibbs starting to draw up to the back of this battle, and in terms of lap times, he's running a bit quicker than all of them except for our leader.
Yeah, faster last time than Frid and Vartanian and McFarlane. Gibbs with a 39 flat or so. Very much in his element there, pushing on. Battle for 12th, as it says. Carl Edwards-Lamb has been one of the other big movers so far. Into 13th, closing in on Stockett in 12th as well.
Yeah, Regis Stockett up one position here, and it looks like Bailey Frid is the first of our lead pack to blink to come in for his pit stop. Now, this is going to set the mark here. We'll see if Kobe Williams will draw up with him when he comes out of the pits. He's still up there behind Steve Hosey, and doesn't look like much chance of a move being made on this lap, certainly not until halfway around the second. So Bailey Frid now stopped in the lane, getting the fuel in. He is away as they exit the final corner, and Hosey, man, the final corner seems to be a popular place to go for a bit of a loop. That's going to be nothing doing there for Kobe Williams. Doesn't have to worry, and you see just off in the distance, Bailey Frid all the way up there, turning into turn 2 up ahead. So Kobe Williams not gaining much out of that.
No, 4 or 5 seconds behind. Not really helped by the song and dance and light show he had in front of him in the final corner there. Another driver just catching a little bit too much of the grass. I think Hosey was even a little sideways as he approached the grass, and that sure didn't help him catch it once he was in that circumstance. Burse breaking clear in the lead. This is the battle second and third. Are they going to react to Frid on the lane? Vartanian has got in front of McFarlane. McFarlane now back into third. McFarlane now into the pit lane, I do feel. Yep.
Oh, it seems that with the pace Vartanian was showing, McFarlane probably reckons this is the best decision. Try and pit before him and see if he can make some time up on his outlap. Of course, there's not going to be much of an undercut, if any, because tyres are not involved in pit stops. But still, pitting earlier than another driver can certainly allow you to take some advantage. We'll see how it works out for Corey McFarlane. And remember, he's got Bailey Frid to worry about, who's up ahead of Kobe Williams. This is going to be interesting. Frid now down the front stretch, and Corey McFarlane just coming out of the pits ahead of him. They're going to be side by side coming into turn 2. This is going to be quite interesting. On board with McFarlane. Frid, does he manage to sneak ahead? No, he does not. Has to stay to the outside here, and McFarlane just holds on to the position there. Effective 4th place.
Long stop for Gibbs, and he's out of the picture, and in fact, he's going to be fighting with Williams here. So I thought there was a big gap between Frid and Kobe Williams. Gibbs has come out even behind Kobe Williams from all of that. He's going to then have to, for the remaining sort of second half of the race, keep on pushing with the strong pace that he showed in the first if he's going to fight back into contention.
Bailey Frid getting the move done on Corey McFarlane at the hairpin, but it's not over. He's going to have to try and complete it here at the Mercedes grandstand, and looks like he does. So it took him a bit longer than he would have liked, but he is back ahead of Corey McFarlane, and you see how much they bounce over those curbs. This the front suspension on these Porsches can really take a beating around a track like this, as We check out Mortlock and Cowie there fighting. Callum Pratt has made his way into the pit lane. Currently third in Pro-Am as he comes into the pits. And that will set him a bit down the order. We still have around 11 cars left in the field yet to come in for a pit stop. Tyson Hamner and Regis Stockett also making their way into the lane. But our leaders, by and large, they are looking to stay out as much as possible. But remember, the end of the pit window is approaching, so they'll have to come in either this lap or the next.
That might trigger another land rush onto pit lane, as there is still your top 10 haven't stopped per the timing column. Frid there in 11th, leader of the cars who have stopped. Nothing from the lap times from Burst suggests that he's going to get undercut, though.
There's also still the possibility of a safety car, and if that safety car comes out, then it's going to be a big disadvantage for everyone in the top 10 who have not come into the pits yet. These guys have already gotten their pit stop out of the way, and you pit under safety car, you do end up losing a lot less time, but you'll still end up losing positions to these guys as Fred tries again to get by Corey McFarlane. And McFarlane, great defense of the position, nice and deep into the right-hander. Fred gives him the room. Oh, is he going to try the move here? Better not. This is certainly not one of the prime passing opportunities at the Hockenheimring. And it looks like Dylan Burse, Mario Vartanian, and Lachlan Cowie all in the pits. Shannon Mortlock moves through into the lead. Jared Sirkovich and Andrew Dyson in the top 3 at the moment. Now, this is going to be crucial here. They got the Frid and McFarlane battle, rounding them up here. Burse is off the jacks. Mario Vartanian's gotten his fuel done. They both come out of the lane. Now, where are our battlers? They've just come out of turn 1 now. Have a look at the difference that has made. It looks like pitting later, certainly a big advantage. They spent a bit more time running with a lighter car.
Yeah, and Burst just absolutely had the pace. Regardless, when some of these guys dropped out of his slipstream, he was just going to keep punching in the laps that got him pole position and won him race number 1. And the pit stop has just helped Burst add another half a second to his gap to Vartanian as well. Still going to be some great battles all the way till the end here.
Yeah, we've still got everyone in the top 7 left to make their way into the pits. They have to do it at the end of this lap. We are on lap 13 now. The battle between Frid and McFarlane shows no signs of letting up. These two have been pushing each other hard pretty much the whole night whenever they've been together. And it shall continue over the final 13 minutes of this second race. Question is, has Frid already used up everything his car has to offer? Corey McFarlane, of course, with no one in front of him, he doesn't have any distractions from the front at least. He'll be wanting to extend that gap as finally the field is cleansed and everyone comes into the lane. Dylan Burse will filter back through into the lead, and it's going to be Mario Vartanian filtering back through into second. This is the battle for third.
Always great to see how they attack turn 1. It seems like some drivers just can't keep the car turning, and there's a lot of right hand down all the way through to the exit. Some others really, with Scandy, flick it in, and then got really neutral hands all the way through the middle and risk losing the rear. Depend on the state of the tyres, the track temperature as well, which has stayed very steady. 19 Celsius. You can't see much sun hitting the track that would warm it up either.
Very cloudy conditions here in virtual Germany right now, in Baden-Württemberg. In terms of positions gained, it looks like Robert Gibbs, one of the big movers in the top 10. Jared Sirkovich still has the most positions gained at 14, but Robert Gibbs now up into 5th, and that's 12 positions gained for him. Of course, there have been incidents and crashes in the opening laps that helped him on that campaign, but with the pit stop completed, Gibbs now holding off Kobe Williams here in the battle for the last couple of positions in the top 5. They've got Lachlan Cowie and Shannon Mortlock behind them as well, who will certainly stand to take advantage if any of these guys make a mistake or they come together.
Cowie was wide in the Sachs curve there and will find himself under a little bit of pressure from Mortlock in the final sector here. Oh, and that
my
was
God.
such an aggressive line from McFarlane there. We've seen exactly that end in tragedy when you get a little bit too much of that gravel.
Yeah, goodness me.
Car very bouncy at the same moment as well.
Yeah, the suspension on these Porsche Cup cars is quite basic compared to modern race car suspension of today. Of course, that is the whole point of this racing class. You can't modify a huge amount of the settings on these things. It largely comes down to the driver, and even then, this series is fixed setup. All drivers are running the same settings. The only thing they can really tweak is the brake bias, which will certainly help them getting it rotated here into the hairpin. We are on board with Corey McFarlane as he continues to chase down Bailey Fridd, and oh, here we go. This is going to be a move into the Mercedes section, up the inside into the left-hander, and that's going to be Corey McFarlane up into third again, but probably not for long if Bailey Fridd has anything more to say about it.
Still right in touch as the cars in the background bounce across the curb. And there's still plenty of race left in this, really, to make a move. If you just stay close, we saw plenty of passes happen on the penultimate lap and the last lap of race number 1, where they end up in a battle like this over, say, third as it is here, and you sit there and you wait and you bide your time, and then on the last lap you make sure that you've picked the right braking zone for the hairpin. So they're throwing some punches here, making some moves. I think the desperation dial turns up a little bit more once they've seen that white flag.
Indeed it does. So under 10 minutes to go now in this race, and
no desperation for Dylan Burse. He's extended his lead from 1.5 seconds to 3.5 seconds since the pit stops just 3 laps ago.
It's been a dominant night from Dylan Burse, hasn't it? Started on pole in race 1, took the win, and managing to filter through into the lead here, showing no signs of any pressure from behind, but the pressure is still on here for third and for fifth as well. Robert Gibbs holding off Kobe Williams. And here's Jared Sirkovich and Andrew Dyson, who's still recovering from his spin on the first lap. Involved in that incident with Matt Dunphy. There's been no further action from race control concerning that, as that is certainly a move up the inside of the hairpin and covered off reasonably on the exit for Dennis Fiedler, trying his best to hold on to 12th place here, battling with Kyle Edwards-Lambie, who's up 12 positions, and then Matt Dunphy just up behind them, who started in the first grid spot for this race. Oh, just goes a bit deep, stays ahead, and as you like it, away they go into the ending section of the lap here at the Hockenheimring. Such a challenging track, and it certainly has provided good racing here tonight. You know, the varying widths and corner radiuses and what have you certainly makes for some great battle opportunities here.
I mean, the moves through the hairpin that have then continued into the next 2 or 3 corners have absolutely been a highlight to me. Worth building a grandstand to accompany that giant Mercedes sign at that part of the track. Or maybe I'm putting the cart before the horse on that one.
I'm sure that they had moves like that in mind when designing that section of the circuit. Hasn't quite translated into fantastic racing in a Formula 1 sense, but in every other category, this track turns it up grandly every time we come here. So the battle continues here for P5. Kobe Williams, he doesn't seem to be showing much sign of rounding up Robert Gibbs here, though he did run 0.2 faster on the previous lap. He might just be building up to a move in the final couple of laps, and the time is still ticking away. It's not going to be that long until the white flag. We do have 4 laps to go projected as things stand. So time rapidly running out. What can Kobe Williams do? Robert Gibbs seems to be doing all right there with that late apex as we check a little bit further back here. The fighting continues between Fiedler, Edwards Lambie and Matt Dunphy. And both of them getting into the gravel trap. Take it easy, boys. They managed to recover.
Everyone's been through that one today. Doesn't take too much ambition into that section to run wide, and once you're to the wrong side of the curb, it drops away and just keeps inviting you out there till you run through a whole lot of the grass in the off track there. Part of it is a rally cross course there, and that's the turn 1 apex.
Yeah, it's a little bit rallycross at some places around this circuit as Kobe Williams goes for the move on Robert Gibbs. Maybe a little bit of oversteer into the braking zone, but he gets the move done. Gibbs gave him plenty of room there, yielded the position. Good professional racing between those two, but we'll see how long it takes for Gibbs to try and move back on Kobe Williams. He doesn't go for it into this braking zone. But surely, with only 5 minutes to go in the race now, he'll be lining up a move. He's still got to be wary of the 2 drivers behind, Cowie and Mortlock. If there's even a slight hint of a mistake, they'll be right there to pounce.
The shorter pit stop, I think Gibbs would have been in podium contention as well here. So finds himself in what functionally is a 4-way fight over 5th. We saw this in race number 1 as well. You're in this position here where there's 1 car in front of you you want to overtake, but there's 2 immediately behind you that could also come on through, and that sort of ended in tears a little bit for it was Hunter in that position as well with Dyson.
A lot of drama.
You've got to pick your moves a little more carefully.
Yes. The racing has generally been so intense here in the AOG Porsche Cup. I think a few drivers have forgotten about that as we ride on board with Kyle Edwards Lambie. 13th place, quite a few positions gained for him here.
Get closer so we can read what's underneath that rear wing.
Yes, please. Well, hopefully with the draft down this back stretch, we might be able to get a little view on it. You see the momentum start to draw him up to the back. I still can't quite read that. It's a little bit small on my end, but he goes for the move into the hairpin. The 737 of Dennis Fiedler, doesn't quite let him go. Has to leave him room on the outside. It's good to see that, unlike in certain real-life racing series, if someone goes around the outside, they aren't just immediately run off the track. We do like racing room here at SimSpeed.
Has there been a soapbox about that yet?
Not yet, but
there could be an hour.
Yeah,
be an
very
hour.
much could be.
I think it's a sort of a inverse of the Lynn Fox. You're passing another fox. It's you've been passed by something. But that was not actually the case in that attempt at the hairpin.
Mm-hmm. Well, falling back 1 position, Dennis Fiedler. Lucky 13th position for him. It is lucky number 1 for Dylan Burse. Mario Vartanian up ahead of this battle between McFarlane and Frid. And McFarlane 1.6 seconds behind. If he can gain a little bit of extra time on this lap, he might be able to get a whisper of draft and try and have a run at 2nd place here. But it's not looking likely at this stage unless Vartanian makes a mistake. It seems that McFarlane has managed to drop Bailey Frid for now. Frid's still making his presence known there. It's not that far between them, but they're nowhere near as close as they were on previous laps. Meanwhile, Kobe Williams and Robert Gibbs still fighting, and Gibbs still looking to get 5th place back.
Yeah, this one will go down to maybe the last lap of the last corner. Just dropping off them a little bit. Lachlan Cowie still keeping the pressure on. Farlan almost breaking clear of Frid.
Continuing to take time out of Vartanian as well, as it is white flag for Dylan Burse up at the front of the field. This will turn out to be a 21-lap race as predicted. No safety car interventions tonight. There's still plenty to be decided here in the AOG Porsche Cup over this final 4.5 kilometres of the Hockenheimring. Can Kobe Williams hold off Robert Gibbs here? Well, it's all going to come down to the slipstream down this back stretch through the Parabolica to the hairpin. Let's see if he has any kind of advantage, Robert Gibbs. Seems that he might be a little bit too far back to get the move done this time, but hey, if he ends up nailing the exit, this will set him up for a good run into the final couple of sectors.
I think Frid had to go and got in too deep, and McFarlane's come back at him for final step on the podium.
Has indeed. We'll catch one final Virtual Racing School replay here. Yeah, that was from a long way back there, and he locked up the right front. No chance of making the corner there, so McFarlane then back up into third place. But up at the front, it has been a cool, calm, collected and dominant drive in both races from Dylan Burse here today. The number 68 for Vendaval Sim Racing is going to come across the line to take the double here at the Hockenheimring. It's Dylan Burse, your victor once again in the AOG Porsche Cup. A fantastic performance. Mario Vartanian on for his second place of the night. McFarlane just manages to hold off Frid for the final spot on the podium, and it looks like Kobe Williams managing to hold off the advances of Robert Gibbs. 2 top 5s for Vendaval. I reckon they'll be happy.
And then Mortlock in 8th. Fiedler and Flock and Dunphy and Karen are all still together, but I'm not sure any moves can happen in this last sector without a big mistake, and they'll cross in that order.
That they will. We're slowing down here for a couple of photo opportunities. Dylan Burse just trundling along, enjoying his victory celebrations here. And I don't think you can say much more about his drive than what has already been said. It was a great performance to take another victory by 5.5 seconds over Mario Vartanian. Kobe Williams and Andrew Dyson, ultimately, that doesn't look like the results there. We'll go and fix that, but it was Dylan Burse, Mario Vartanian, Corey McFarlane, Bailey Frid and Kobe Williams, your top 5. There we go, showing up correctly. Robert Gibbs 6th, Lachlan Cowie in 7th, Shannon Mortlock takes the Pro-Am win. Andrew Dyson recovering to finish in 9th place, with Jared Sirkovich rounding out the top 10, 2nd in Pro-Am.
Callum Pratt started 11th, finished 11th, and then coloured was Lambert, Dennis Fiedler, Sebastian Flock, Matt Dunphy, Sean Caron, all really close together in some of the battles that they were having there. And further back to Bradley Vaughan, Tyson Hanmer, Ryan Hunter, and Kurt Dunn.
Tim Himbry, Steve Hosey and Regis Stockett were the final 3 drivers to finish on the lead lap. Grant Matterford, it has not been the best of nights there for our AM-class poleman in race 1. Sass to settle for 24th, with Darren Hedge coming home behind him. Michael Taliancic 7 laps down. Nathan Anderson 9 laps down, and we truly get into retirement territory here. Hunter Robb, Kian Davey, Stephen Griffiths, Dalton Green, all not making it to the end of the race. In fact, Griffiths and Green out only a couple of laps in. A big shame for them. Well, the victory celebrations are certainly on for Dylan Burse up at the front of the field, and we have them all in here for driver interviews. First up, we do, of course, have our double victor tonight. Welcome, Dylan Burse. A great double victory for you and Vendaval Sim Racing here at the Hockenheimring. How was the car?
Yeah, I mean, haven't done an AG round for a little while now. I skipped last round because I had other stuff on. But yeah, I mean, good to be back in it. Great car as always. And yeah, I mean, pretty cruisy race. Just try and qualify up the front and try and build a gap on the field, which I luckily did.
Hockenheim seemed to get the better of a few drivers here today, particularly with those orange anti-cut curbs. It certainly plays havoc with the suspension of these Porsches.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too sure. I don't know. I hit a couple of that in the race and it didn't really unsettle the car too much. But I mean, if you can hit them wrong, it doesn't end well, that's for sure. I've done it before. But yeah, I mean, just got to try and avoid them, I guess, and keep your toes out of trouble.
That's it. Well, unfortunate that you missed last round. You were 13th in the championship coming into this round, but it's certainly a magnificent points haul that will help you to break back into the top 10 before the final 2 rounds.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, just try and knuckle me head down and try and get a few more good results so I can, try and get a decent spot at the championship, yeah.
Well, before we let you go, is there anyone you'd like to thank? Any shout-outs or sponsors? Who gets it done for you at Vendaval?
Oh, like always, I'd just like to thank you fellas for the awesome broadcast. I'd like to thank my team, Vendaval Sim Racing. And, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Well, Dylan Burse with what looked like an easy cruise to victory from the outside, but certainly probably not the full story there. Next up, we have Mario Vartanian in the commentary box, stood by with David Haynes.
Yeah, indeed. Twice on the podium, 2 second-place finishes, but of course, that invert format means you had to do work across both.
Yeah, it was pretty fun tonight. I didn't get quite the good qualifying after stuffing up turn 2 in one of my runs, but started 7th and ran it up the field. It was pretty fun, especially being Hockenheim. The racing's pretty close. The second race was quite the fun in the first couple laps, but then once we broke away from the traffic, it was quite the boring race, I guess.
Well, boring leading to a good result, I'm sure you can deal with. It looked like the slipstream pretty strong down the back straight towards that hairpin, and a lot of moves happened there that stuck, and a couple of moves were sent tonight that didn't.
Yeah, it's pretty hard here because when you're in the middle of a pack, you kind of have to block and pass at the same time. So, yeah, it was pretty fun.
Couple of rounds in, how's the new 992 treating you, and how has it proven to be different from the old car?
Yeah, the 992 is real good. I find it's a real fun car to drive. The main differences is it's a lot not easier. It's much easier to drive, but it's still got its own differences. Like, I'm not too sure, to be honest.
Well, no worries. What it's doing is working for you. 2 second-place finishes. Very, very consistent. Congrats.
Thank you.
Well, Mario Vartanian with a pretty good night here tonight. 2 second places for his troubles. Next up, we got a 3rd place finisher in race 2 and championship leader, Corey McFarlane. Corey, it didn't look like race 1 went your way, but certainly good recovery in race 2. It looks like Bailey Frid kept you very close company all night.
Yeah, it was good fun to get back into AOG again. And then, yeah, race 1 wasn't exactly ideal getting turned, but I think that wasn't really, like, looking back at it, I don't really think there was much Brad could have done there. He understandably would have gone underneath me, but I turned sort of back down on him, but I don't know. And then, yeah, race 2 was just a matter of staying out of trouble, I guess, for the first few laps, and then just seeing where I'd end up, because I knew I was pretty slow tonight.
Did seem that the nature of this track provides a lot of opportunities for extended battles. Like, I mean, you make a move at the hairpin and you don't end up actually getting it done until a few corners later. That must have been quite the challenge.
Yeah, definitely. It's a hard place to once you pass, yeah, because it's such long straights. You can just draft straight back past someone. But that's where really having good racecraft comes in and being able to prevent that in different ways. But it's all part of the fun, I guess.
Absolutely. Well, looking forward to the next round in a couple of weeks' time. We're going to the Hockenheimring for another super sprint round. Your thoughts on that place? Do you feel like you're going to go well there? How are your preparations going?
Yeah, look, not a huge fan of the track at all. Driven it once on iRacing and really did not like it. I guess preparations will just be the same as this week. Rock up in pre-qual and just do some laps with some friends and then turn up for the race and just see how we go.
Well, we'll see how well that works out then, Corey. Before we let you go, anyone that you'd like to thank?
Yes, thank you to everyone at AOG who puts the series on. Dan, Tom, Kev do a great job behind the scenes to organise everything. And also to you guys at SimSpeed. Broadcast is always amazing, as usual. Also, thank you to Mackenzie's Mini Earthworks, Transworks, Gigante Coffee, EMSS, Sam Blacklock Media, and also my dad. I'd like to thank him.
If McFarlane Sr. is watching, hello. Your son certainly gave us some good racing here tonight. That's Corey McFarlane. And the final driver interview of the night, we're going to bring in Shannon Mortlock, who ended up taking the Pro-Am win in race 2. Congratulations for that, Shannon. Quite the frenetic race out there. You were involved in a few battles.
Yeah, cheers, mate. It was certainly pretty lively out there, but kept me entertained. Enjoyed it.
Certainly. What were you thinking about in terms of results coming into this round? Did you have any expectations?
Oh, well, I like Hockenheim. It's a good track. I wasn't expecting to go too well because it's pretty hard to stay out of a lot of the battles here, which I got in a lot of battles, just I didn't get taken out, which was good. So, yeah, I'm very happy with taking the Pro-Am win. Couldn't have expected any better.
And with only a couple of rounds to go, certainly sets you up for another bit of a championship assault. Is your goal just to try and get as many points as possible, or are you going to go for more Pro-Am wins at the Hockenheimring and Nürburgring?
Oh, absolutely, mate. I'm always going for the wins. Keeping the championship in mind, of course, but we'll see how we go. I'll always go for the win, see what's on the table. But yeah.
Well, before we let you go, anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to for your Pro-Am win in race 2 today?
Huge thanks to Autosev New Zealand, sorry. You boys for the stream and AOG for putting on an awesome league.
Shannon Mortlock taking victory in Pro-Am here tonight. Obviously very happy about that, and rightly so. Well, David, that brings to an end proceedings for tonight. The Hockenheimring certainly turned it up again in terms of action, but we go to a track that is pretty much the polar opposite in terms of layout. It's the Hockenheimring. That twisty middle sector is certainly going to make things challenging for the drivers.
It'll certainly be fun to watch these faster, better handling new Cup cars through that bit, but I have to feel that down and towards turn 1 is going to very much resemble the Hockenheim hairpin in terms of the kind of racing we're going to see and the moves we're going to see being the key overtaking opportunity.
Exactly. That long run to turn 1 at the Hockenheimring. Lots of opportunity for some big moves up the inside. Well, that'll be happening in 2 weeks' time. and we hope that you'll be able to join us here on SimSpeed TV for that. Thank you very much for tuning in tonight. A big thanks once again to our series supporters, Virtual Racing School and Sam Blacklock Media. Of course to Aussie Online Gaming and the crew there for putting this whole thing on in the first place. Certainly an entertaining way to spend a Tuesday night. I'm Reese Gardner, David Haynes alongside me. Corey McFarlane likely holding on to his championship lead, but only by slim margins here, with not quite the results he was expecting here at the Hockenheimring. Who's going to come home with top honours in the final 2 rounds? You will find out here on SimSpeed TV. Thank you for watching. We'll see you later.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rid of the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up top.
Oh my god! Oh! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Second very close. These guys, I want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, here we go. Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?